All right, so we are no longer on the health journey kick. We are now transitioning to scuba.
So Tia's going to talk to us about scuba diving.
All right, so I'm going to start off by saying that I'm pretty new to this topic. I just scuba dived for the first time a few weeks ago. So I might fumble over some of my words and, you know, feel free to ask for clarification and I will do my best to give you an answer or explain. But anyway, so first I want to tell you a little bit about my first experience and then I'll talk about the things that are involved with scuba diving, some of the basics. So I went a few weeks ago and you probably get a picture in your mind of what a scuba diver looks like. You picture the wetsuit and all the gear. So I did put on a wetsuit, and the first thing, or the thing that I remember most is the moment I got in the water, it was like this weird, it was like the suit suctioned to my body. But when the water was going through the suit, it just kind of sucked right in. It was really a bizarre feeling. And I mean, it lasted for a second. It was really brief, but I remember that distinctly. And then the equipment, there's a lot of equipment, and it feels kind of heavy, so it was interesting just to get that feeling. But then you're in the water, and so it's kind of light at the same time. So it was really an interesting contrast. And this was totally new to me. I had no knowledge of scuba diving and had never really been around anything related to that. So it was all kind of this cool experience. So when we first got in the water and were getting ready to go under, the instructors taught us a few things, a few signs actually, ways to communicate underwater. There were two signs in particular. The first one was thumbs up, which we all recognize, usually means cool, everything's a-okay. Well, when you're underwater, that actually means I need to go to the surface. So you're communicating to someone that I need to get back up to the surface. So that was, I found myself doing it all the time and then realizing, oh, that's not what I want to do. So instead of the other idea of thumbs up, which is like everything's cool, what you did was this, which is the like the A-OK sign. And so I had to go back and forth to get that straight. Those were the two main signs that we used for underwater communication. Obviously, for a deaf diver or people who know how to sign, you can communicate underwater a lot more extensively than without that knowledge. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we have that full access to communication underwater.
Yeah, exactly.
No sign, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I suggest you go scuba diving. Take over the scuba diving world. Come on. Okay, so something else that was interesting was just the whole process of breathing. It's easy. I go underwater and my brain automatically says, hold your breath, don't breathe. And so I found myself forgetting to breathe a lot of times. But here I am with this unit in my mouth that I can breathe, and you want to breathe normally because that's how you can function in the water. So that was an interesting thing. Also, ear pressure, you know, as you're going underwater, it's not even that deep before you start feeling the pressure on your ears and you have to constantly release it. And so that was one of the things we were taught how to do. So that was kind of interesting. One other thing that we learned pretty quickly was how to clear your mask underwater. So if you can picture it, they're not just goggles, it's a full mask that covers your eyes and your nose. And sometimes water gets in a mask because maybe the seal's not tight or something. And imagine you're 15 feet under the water or more and you need to clear your mask. So what do? Well, we were taught how to do that. And what you have to do is actually just lift out the bottom portion of your mask. You don't want to take it off because then you'll just flood it with water. So you lift the bottom part below your eyes just enough, and then you have to blow out through your nose and force the water out, and then close it and suction it back on. And it works really well. It's really a cool thing. Even though you're underwater and your mask is surrounded by water, you can do it in a second. So that was really cool, I thought. So that was kind of my first experience. And now I want to talk a little bit about some of the basics of scuba and tell you some of the terminology for the gear, or the gear that you might use, and that sort of thing, so you have a little bit of knowledge. So first of all, some of you may already know that the term scuba was originally an acronym. So each one of the letters stood for something. And it actually, does anybody know? I'll put it out there. I see one hand in the back. Do you know? anybody want to tell me what she's saying?
Self-contained underwater breathing apparatus.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, you got it. You got it. All right. So does everybody get it? So I'm going to repeat that to make it clear. SCUBA stands for self-contained underwater breathing device. Okay. So really nowadays. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, you said A and it's A represents device?
Excuse me, apparatus. Thank you. Apparatus, okay. So anyway, that's where the term originally came from, but it's not really used in apparatus.
What's apparatus?
An apparatus is another word for device. Something that you use for that purpose.
So it's a fancy word for device, basically.
Yeah, basically. Okay, so it's not really, people don't associate it with that phrase anymore, those terms, and it's now used more like a noun or an adjective. So you might hear someone talk about their scuba gear, and it's just a description of what kind of gear you have. So anyway, that's a little bit outdated. But I'm going to go through the basic diving gear that you use for scuba diving. So the first thing I mentioned earlier was a wetsuit. It's basically, I don't need it. So a wetsuit is basically the suit you wear over your body. Some of them are covered all the way to your wrists and all the way to your ankles. They also have short sleeves, short pants. I think it depends on where you're diving, the temperature of the water, the climate of the region, that kind of thing. And it's not so much to heat your body, but it can help your body retain its own heat. It also protects your body from cuts, scrapes, things that you might come in contact with underwater. A scuba unit is the big thing that you see people wear on their back. And there are three parts to that. The tank, which is a big tank that goes down your back, connected to a backpack sort of thing called a BCD or a BC. And that stands for buoyancy, BC or BCD, either one. And that stands for buoyancy controlling device. So basically, when you're in the water, your body naturally wants to float. That's what's going to happen. And so this jacket can fill with air, or you can release the air, which helps your body kind of either hover or go up or go down, essentially is what it's for. And then the third part to your scuba unit is your regulator, which is the mouthpiece that is connected to your tank. So it's where you're going to access your air. So I mentioned buoyancy and how your body is going to naturally want to float. Well, sometimes that BC unit is not going to be sufficient. So you might have weights built into your jacket to actually pull you down, or a weight belt on. So that's another type of gear that could be used. You have the mask, we talked about that earlier, which is like goggles that cover your eye and your nose. You also can have a snorkel with you. And the reason you might use a snorkel is, let's say you're up by the surface and you want to preserve your air. You can just use the snorkel and still be able to look underwater. Now there's also, there's two types of ways that you can, I don't really know the correct term for it, but what I would call these is, there's open circuit or rebreathing, and I don't know what umbrella they fall under. But basically, open circuit means you're breathing in air from your tank, and then you're breathing it out into the water. So that's where you're going to see bubbles coming up.
Okay, breathing it in from...
You're breathing it in from your tank, and then you're breathing out just into the water. So bubbles will come out into the water. Versus a rebreather, think about it like recycled air. So if you would have two tanks, and you're going to breathe in air from one tank, and then you're going to breathe out into your regulator, and it's going to go into another tank, where that is mixed with carbon dioxide, and you can recycle the air. So essentially, you can keep breathing. You're not going to run out of air. But it's really important to not forget and breathe out into the water. Because if you're not breathing into that second tank, then it's going to throw the balance off, and there's weird chemistry stuff that's happening. So that can be dangerous if you're not paying attention to what you're doing. There's also a few different types of diving. Open water versus closed water. Open water essentially means you're out in water that's not bounded. So an ocean, a lake, I guess technically has boundaries, but it's not. Essentially closed water is a pool. I should have started with that. Closed water means you're in something that has walls and sides and it's not a natural water source versus open water where you're going to be out. Now deep diving, the kind of stuff that I'm talking about in this basic equipment is for standard dives, and it varies depending on who you ask, but what's considered deep diving is really below about 60 feet. And that's when things get a little bit sticky. There are some dangers. You can actually have something called, right, let me make sure I get it right, oxygen narcosis, which affects your body a little bit like intoxication from alcohol may. What happens is you actually start with a feeling of euphoria and overconfidence, and then you might have some numbness or have some confusion, and it can be dangerous, you know. If you're down underwater and you're not clear on what's going on, you can't get yourself to the surface, and you can't really regulate your safety. So that can be very severe. Now, lots of people do extreme deep diving, though. There are ways to do that. When you get really deep, you have to have multiple tanks, and actually there's a certain depth where you can't just breathe the normal oxygen that we breathe in air. Your body actually intakes it in a different way, so you have to have other gases incorporated. I think sometimes helium and sometimes nitrogen along with oxygen, and so you have to have those exactly right so that things don't go wrong when you're way down below the surface. It's really scary. I think some people are super adventurous, and that's what they like to do. Someone like me would be fine just staying closer to the surface and checking out the scenery. You can also get a variety of different certifications, and I'll pull up a picture here that shows you just kind of how many are out there. And this is going to be an example of, hold on just a second. Okay, so this is in particular connected to an organization called PADI, which is the Professional Association of Diving Instructors. And across the top you can see the blue boxes, and those are different certifications that you can get. And underneath each one of those are specialty certifications that you can do once you reach this level. So when you're at this basic level, you can just do some basic things. Then when you get up to the open diver level, you have all of these specialties here. Some of them are pretty severe. Enriched air diver, that's kind of what we were talking about, where you have different air tanks, that kind of thing. Night diver, I mean, there's a variety of things. And then on up, you can do all sorts of different things. And then you get up to this point, rescue diver, and once you've gotten to that point, you can start training to become an instructor yourself, if that's what you want to do. And then eventually, the be-all, end-all, the last point you can get to is called master scuba diver. Now, there are variations, like I said, this is in particular with PADI, this organization, but other organizations might have different titles, might have slightly different ways of breaking it down. But I think, fundamentally, I think they're pretty similar. But there are a lot of options. Here, let me turn that back. When you get certified for something, you get a little certification card. It's kind of like a credit card. It's going to have the title of your certification, and then on the back information about when you got it, where you got it, your picture, all that kind of stuff. And you have one for each specialty, so you could accrue a big pile of cards if that's what you wanted. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Finally, I'll close with saying if you are interested in diving in this area, the place that I went to is in Independence, and they had a closed water pool, and it's called Skin and Scuba, and it was pretty cool. They've got a shop, and they've got this pool, and they've got all the equipment there. I think you pay for a session. You can go and just check it out, like recreational diving, and learn the basics, or you can go and get certified. And as I understand it, if you get a diving certification, you're certified for life. So, you know, if you're ever interested in do that, it's a good place to start. You can do it in this area. And
How
then,
much is that about?
That's a good question. I don't know. I want to say maybe $30 to $40. You can get in on sessions.
Like, seriously?
Yeah.
$30 to $40, that's it?
And you would probably be in a group session. They've got something called Discover Scuba, which is a really introductory class. And so if you're interested, you can let me know, I can give you the website or something. But it's a really cool experience, so.
How much does it cost?
What'd you say the name of that place was?
It's called Skin and Scuba, actually Skin and Scuba. And I can give you the website or write it
I
down.
was just curious. I have an interpreter that works with a Dutch student there. It was a really neat experience.
Cool, cool,
Yeah, I've been scuba too, and it was fun.
awesome,
And there was an interpreter there as well, there's also a teacher there.
very cool.
It was really cool. They were really friendly. And so it was really $30 to $40 to get certified? Well, no, certification's expensive. It was around $300.
So for the basic class, it's like $30 or $40. And then if you want to do certificate, you can figure out if you're interested and then go on to get certified if that's what you choose.
Right, okay. Cool.